Welcome to the Tattooed Truth Podcast with Anna Love, a space for embodied conversations for soul-led rebels. I'm your host, Anna Love, intuitive empowerment coach, subconscious healing guide, and no stranger to burning it all down to rise in truth. Here we dive deep into identity, healing, personal power, and what it really takes to lead a soul-aligned life. You'll hear unfiltered insights, real stories, and live coaching sessions with bold callers ready to break free and embody their next level. This is your invitation to reclaim your voice, rewire your patterns, and rise fully expressed. Let's get into it. Welcome to our episode, Owning Your Power Out Loud, and why women must stop diluting their brilliance in order to make others comfortable. Now, this topic, oh my gosh, I feel like it's everywhere I look right now. And I know that's because when you have something top of mind, your brain will start looking and scanning outside of you to find things that match that vibration or those thoughts and your energy. So this topic right now is really important for me to talk about and just bring forth. And I'd love to hear your opinions. And not only is this for all women, but I'm really wanting to focus in on the power woman, the woman who is in a powerful seat, maybe in her job. Maybe she's a CEO, maybe she's an entrepreneur, maybe she's a leader, a boss. But for all women, this applies as well. So, as a woman, we are just wired differently than men, right? We're more emotional, and we are also taught that that is a bad thing. Okay. And I don't know about you. It was never specifically taught directly to me. It was an indirect message that I have received ever since I was very, very young. Maybe it was in the form of a joke, right? Or a snide comment, or it's just out there in sitcoms, it's on TV. It's just the way that I grew up thinking and feeling that I was less than because I was of the emotional species. So I don't know if you are feeling this as well, or if you've ever caught wind of this, but it's a real thing and it permeates the way that we show up, especially when we are in a leadership position. We have the authority, yet there's an underlying current that we feel we do not. It's a subconscious belief. And I'm here to break that. I'm here to really lay down the law, give you a permission slip, shall we say, and really normalize that our emotions are our guidance system. And they're there for a reason. We are blessed and gifted with this extra way of absorbing information, scanning our environment, checking to see, is this safe? Is this real? Is this authentic? Is this person in front of me speaking from truth? And is there clarity here? And we are allowed to feel that, right? Whether it's a sixth sense, whether you consider yourself an empath and you take on even the unspoken, which is what I'm actually talking about here, is the unspoken feelings and the unspoken spoken message that other people are delivering, right? Or other people are feeling. A lot of people don't even need to say things. It's in their energy. It's in their eyes. It's in their body language, right? It's in their mannerisms. And that's what I'm talking about here, is that you may be working in an environment, and I'll tell you a couple of stories about a couple of clients I've had. And then of course I've had my own experiences to bring to the table. But I feel as women, this is something that we deal with on a regular basis, and it becomes so freaking normal that's why I'm talking about it, because I feel like it's an abnormal thing to ignore your own self, to override your emotional intelligence, to override that, to keep the peace or to fit in. And I'm here to say it's time to fucking stop. So we are designed as a woman to feel our emotions and have that be our guidance system. It's a freaking gift. So let's just own it. Okay. But so many powerful women, we whisper our truth, right? We double check our tone. We even apologize for the space that we take up. Even as little girls, I have 3 daughters, and I see my daughters' friends apologizing for being in the way, apologizing for things that do not warrant an apology. And I have all I can do to bite my tongue and say, stop apologizing. It's not my child. She's in my house. And there's a part of me that wants to interrupt that pattern for her, but I have to actually hold myself back. Sometimes I don't, and sometimes I do, right? Because when it's a repetitive thing and I notice it time after time after time, I do have to check myself because I don't want to be overly aggressive with her. If she was my child, I'd say to them right out word like, dude, what are you apologizing for? Like, did you actually hurt someone, or are you apologizing for taking up space? Because that's not gonna work in the real world. And I want you to break that habit right now. But where do they pick it up? Where do they pick it up? And I noticed this becoming a habit in my daughter's lives in as early as 3rd grade, where there was an apology. So I know they're getting it from school. They're certainly not getting it from my home life. When we behave in that way and we apologize for taking up space in our homes and in our own environments, or when we're in school, then it translates into, I don't feel worthy. I'm not good enough. I need to apologize for being here, even though I've done absolutely nothing wrong. And, what it does to us as little girls, and then we turn into women, is it's a message that we have to dim ourselves and we're not allowed to speak our truth because people somewhere along the way, we've learned that people don't want to hear it. People can't tolerate it. People, we're too much for some people. And the fucking sad truth is it started, long ago. This is a very historic issue with the patriarchy, but it's permeated so many of our lives as women that now even other women are taking this on, right? And other women are adapting to this type of mentality. So what I'm saying is, like, you might be a woman who's out there doing this, like apologizing for taking up space, and then other women are allowing you to do that, right? And what I'm here to say is that we are women, we are the sisterhood. And I know that's triggering for some girls because of the word sisterhood. I mean, I have a sister wound, I have a mother wound, I have all kinds of female wounds. But at the end of the day, we are all on the same side. We are all feminine energies. We all are women. And if we can just come together rather than gang up and choose sides, and some of us women are being extra masculine to fit in and then bullying the other women who are, a little bit more afraid to take up that space, that's my actual problem. And that's what I'd like to break the chain of that. And it doesn't, I can't do it all. It takes an awareness within every woman to be able to come together. And one by one, we can change our ways. And I have faith that that's possible. So this episode is really your permission slip to stop shrinking and start showing the world who you really are. And I'm going to ask you, where do you dilute your brilliance? Do you do that to be accepted? Where do you do that? Where do you dilute your brilliance to be accepted? And it could be in the home life. It could be, out when you're with your girlfriends. It could be obviously in the workplace. Where do you do that, if at all? I know I used to do that in the workplace. I used to do that in relationships. I used to do that in my family around my father. And it was a, I feel like for me, it wasn't necessarily told to me directly, but it was definitely an indirect feeling, a nuance that women were to have a quieter voice, to be subservient. And I just don't subscribe to that any longer. So I recognize where I used to do it. And recognition, I'll just say, and awareness is the first step to breaking the cycle. So we all get to become aware and become awake. And I want you to also ask yourself, whose comfort are you prioritizing over your own power when you do dilute your brilliance? Okay. Who are you trying to prioritize? Is it your boss? Is it a male friend? Is it your partner? And I'm not just speaking about men. This could be like maybe your mom. had you feeling this sort of way? Maybe your grandmother, maybe you have a woman boss, right? Maybe there's a women group at your work who all subscribe to the belief that, if we speak out, we're too much, and we might as well just tamper down our voice, tamper down our opinions. And finally, I want to ask you, what would change in your life if you were to speak your truth without apology? And that's the caveat. Speaking your truth without apology. Imagine that. I broke the cycle of saying I'm sorry when I wasn't actually doing anything to hurt anyone. Took a while to do that because I wasn't even aware that I was doing it. It's craziness. So we learned as a woman, I mean, I don't know about you, but I can think of all kinds of situations in my life where it was better to be quiet and it was a survival mechanism to get along. And I know that, I mean, as young as kindergarten, this was taught to me. You have to be quiet, stand in line. I remember going to an interview. I was 5, getting interviewed to be going into kindergarten. And I remember specifically, and it's funny how my brain will really remember very, very vividly what it felt like, what it looked like, what I was wearing, what the other person looked like, what they had said to me when things were traumatic. And this incident was traumatic. And I remember I was like a little happy lady going in to do this interview, and I was slightly nervous, but my mom was like, hyping it up, and it was so exciting. I was finally going to get to go to school. I did not go to preschool. And so this was like my big opportunity to like arrive. And I had this, cute little dress on, and I go into the interview, and she's asking me, this lady is one-on-one. She's asking me all kinds of things. And at one point she was like asking me to stack these, like a tower of blocks that click together. I forget what they're called, but they're like math blocks for counting. And I remember just like talking about, like, I don't remember what I said specifically, but it had nothing to do with the blocks. And she wanted me to, and I know that this could be sort of like read into a little bit like, well, Anna, she was asking you to do A and you were doing B, but I was doing what she asked me to do. And I was being social and wanting to connect. And she was like, shh, I need you to stop talking. And I was like, there was a part of me that went, like that. I was 5. I went like, oh my God. And I remember being like, oh my God, like, I'm not good. Like, this is bad, right? Like shame right fucking away. I'm not even in day 1 of kindergarten, and they're conditioning me to quiet down. Don't be expressive. I asked you a direct question about numbers. Do not tell me about the sunshine today. Do not tell me about you saw a bird on the way to school. And I understand you do need, I was a kindergarten teacher. You do need to rein the kids in. And if you ask them a question about what's 1 + 1, you don't want them to say, my mother had an English muffin for breakfast, right? We want her to understand what's 1 + 1, stay on task, right? However, my point I'm making is that right from the beginning of school was a big thing for me on shaming me and quieting me down and quieting my voice. And it was survival mode for me. So that is one just teeny tiny, eensy weensy example into how my power started to be stripped from me as early as 5 years old when I entered the school system. So I learned to be afraid. Okay. I learned that I don't know when I'm supposed to talk. Like, when do I get to be me? When can I just speak freely? Because certainly it's not while I'm at school. Okay. And you also learn as a young lady that you don't want to be dumb. You want to be the smartest one in the room, right? You want to be like in the red group. I was like, I was very aware that there were red groups, green groups, yellow groups. There were like the smarter, faster learners. And there was a lot of pressure around that. And when you're feeling pressure to perform, you're also feeling the opposite of, okay, I'm on, high alert here, and I need to spit out information, and I'm not allowed to tap into my emotional self, which is very real and very prominent for me And so I don't want to be too much, right? I also learned like being too emotional is too much. And there were jokes in my family because my mom is a female and she was the only female in her family next to my grandmother. Okay. So she had a load of brothers. And what I learned through the jokes and everyone, no one said it to her directly, like, you're too emotional. Well, actually, yes, they did. They did. That's why I say that. I'm like, yes, they freaking did. They did tell her she was too emotional directly. But I was going to say it was also in the form of jokes. Okay. So I learned directly and indirectly that as a woman, it's not okay and safe to share your emotions fully. Like, you might be able to express a little bit, but too much is going to make you bad and wrong or make other people uncomfortable. Right. So let that sit in. Right. So how we learned from a very young age that when we are telling our truth and being all the feels, that we are too much and it's going to actually make someone else uncomfortable. And that's the problem here. All right. And this is why when we get into these successful roles as adult women, we may have gotten ourselves there and we have these accolades of being the president or the CEO, these high executives, and we're faking confidence, and we're pretending that we don't have all these other sides to us because we don't want to be too intimidating, too emotional, too much. We want to be likable, and we want people to almost fear us, right? So we also want to be like a man. We want everyone that's under you, if you're the boss, to fear you. And I think that's the old way of being, in the 70s, 80s, 90s, even. Now it's 2025 and things are shifting a lot. But I think us as women, if we're, especially of the older generation, I mean, I'm 51, that's real for me still in my body. So, we have to look at all of this and how, my gosh, how we look at people pleasing, I mean, this expands into so many different threads about perfectionism and, just what do we do internally so that we externally fit in. Okay. And people pleasing is one of the big ones. And I feel like I've broken that for the most part. I'll tell you about a client or two that I worked with, specifically women in high power positions. And, one was having these emotional breakdowns and her body was really reacting to what was going on at work, to the point where she had to like continuously call in and or call out of work. And she was struggling with being truthful to her boss for fear that she wasn't going to fit in with the team. And that takes a toll on your gut, on your stomach, and your nervous system. And once we cleared out, like, well, where does this stem from on an unconscious level, we were able to go back and, without disclosing too much, it was on her timeline all the way back into, I believe she had stuff on both her father and her mother's side, all the way back, like so many generations. And once we cleared that out on the timeline, all of a sudden she was able to take better initiative and control over the way that she was being inside her workplace. And things shifted immediately for her, right? Because she had this powerlessness that wasn't even really hers, but yet it had become hers in her work life. So she had amazing results and working with me when we did timeline therapy. And then I remember another woman, she came in, and a powerhouse woman, I think she had something like 3 or 4 kids, and she was pregnant and she was still working full time in a man's world, right? And she came in saying that she didn't know what the issue was. She was just feeling overwhelmed. She was having feelings about her colleague basically taking her ideas, saying it was his idea when really it wasn't. And she couldn't find the words. She couldn't speak her truth and say to her boss, like, no, that was my idea. And he actually is stealing it. Right. So then when we worked together, I always start out working clearing anger is one of the first negative emotion that we clear out on the timeline. She was like, I don't have any anger. And I was like, well, that's fine. We're still going to do it. And she had so much anger. She had so much hidden anger. She was not even aware of it. It was just like permeating her life. And she couldn't even like point to it. And then once we cleared the anger, I swear, I think it was like 1 day or 2 days later, she went into work, called a meeting with her boss and the colleague, and told them all about themselves. And she was like, I don't even know where the words came from. They just came out of me because she was able to be truthful. She was not worried about fitting in. She wasn't worried about how they were going to receive her. And it was so freeing to her, freeing to both clients, right? When they both got to a place of, I'm going to speak my truth and it's not my business how it's received. And then once these women, and I'm just obsessed with being able to provide them with this relief, okay? Once both women claimed their voice, all of a sudden things started to shift for them. And it was just, it's a miraculous shift. And it's literally in a snap of a finger when you work with the unconscious. So, that subconscious identity really is big, right? Because whatever we identify with or whoever we identify as, that equals how we show up. And a lot of times we feel like, well, if I'm loud or if I'm too visible or if I'm too seen, I'm too vulnerable and someone's going to hurt me, right? Back to that survival mode. And we want to be thriving, not surviving. So our nervous system reacts and gets triggered, and it sends us into sometimes where we have to go to the bathroom a lot, or our stomach can't digest food. And we end up with like these severe conditions like IBS or Crohn's, and really, and for me, I developed celiac like in my 40s, right? And all of this was triggered by an emotional reaction to not being able to speak our truth. So when we silence ourselves to fit in, to be liked for survival, there's obviously repercussions to that. There's lost opportunities, lost promotions, lost leadership opportunities, lost influence. And that for me is my story, where I stayed small for so long inside of my teaching career that I watched other people excel. And I was like, I am more qualified than that. I am what I consider to be, better at the craft, at the trade, at what we're doing here. And I watched other people rise because I was just too intimidated to be my full authentic self. And that is no longer the case for me, but I didn't find that voice until after I had exited the school system. So lots of lost opportunities there for me. And I mean, now I feel like it's fine. This is the trajectory of where I was meant to be, right? Helping women find their voice and their truth and their authenticity in order to live a life of freedom. That's beautiful. And I'll take it gladly, happily. I'm in love with my role now. And I'm in love with being able to talk about this openly. So, but I did see, and I grew up in a house where there was lots of emotional resentment, lots of exhaustion around. That's what happens when you're hiding. That's what happens when you're a little girl told to be quiet, and then you grow up. And, like I said, my mom grew up in a home she was basically the only female except my grandmother. And she and my grandmother didn't even have a great relationship. So my mom was essentially on her own. Right. So then when she gets into her 30s, there becomes this. I watched her break down. She had breakdowns and meltdowns, lots of resentment, so much exhaustion. And I didn't know at the time. I was so little. I was like 10 when she started doing this. I was like, what is going on? I wish I had known, what I know now back then, to just better able to help me cope with what was going on and make sense of the world. And I took some of that on. So a lot of us little girls take on the roles of our mothers. We take on the roles of our grandmothers. We take on the roles of our aunts, if we have that in our family. And it's a real freaking thing. And I will say that it is self-abandonment. So it's time to wake up. It is time to claim your freedom, claim your truth, claim your authenticity, show up without shrinking, start using your voice, activating your truth, communicating with power. All right. Communicating with clarity, communicating with compassion. And I know there's sometimes, even now, watch yourself when you're speaking. And if you start tripping over your words, that's an indication that you've still got a little hang up around whatever it is. So you may say like, oh, I'm going to say what I'm about to say. And then your tongue gets tied. Has that ever happened? That's an indication that there's still something in you that's hesitating. So this is your permission slip to let it go. Just let it out and let it land. Whatever it is that your message is, just let it land. Right. And I love to say your mess is your message, which means the things that you've struggled with become your platform, that becomes your teachable moment for someone else. So time to stop performing, time to start leading and watching your world evolve and change. And I want you to rewrite your identity. I want you to say, I am allowed to be powerful, and I want you to feel that power in your body. I am allowed to be seen, and I want you to feel what it feels like to be seen in your body. All right, that's the self-leadership that's we all have inside of us. We all have that inner compass, that compassion, that curiosity, that connectedness, that clarity, that confidence, that courage. That's all inside of you. Access it. Unlock it today, right? I'm giving you the permission slip to do that. So be well. I'm very excited to open the dialogue for this. Come find me. I've switched my Instagram to iam.theannalove. Please find me there. You will be able to click on my link tree and see my offers and set up a call for a one-to-one. If you'd like to work exclusively with me, your entire life will change. That is a promise. And I love you all, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for tuning in to the Tattooed Truth Podcast. If this episode lit something up in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, leave a review, and make sure you're subscribed so you never miss a truth bomb. If you're craving deeper support, guided healing, or a space to reclaim your voice and power, check the show notes for ways to work with me. Remember, your truth is not too loud, too bold, or too much. It's exactly what this world needs. Keep showing up, stay wild, stay true. I'll see you next time.